go?
I hit go.
Right on. But we were just talking about podcasting.
Yeah.
And I sent you a clip about, so it was a Joe Rogan clip where he's interviewing a guy that's on YouTube, Mr. Beast.
Yeah. I had never heard of him.
So I kind of had like my kids, were
Yeah.
like way into him and stuff. But I didn't ever watch him to know if it was good or bad. So we were like, no, like you can't watch him or whatever. And but then I started watching him and it's actually really cool. Like some episodes are like he goes and buys 8,000 hamburgers from the Wendy's and gives them to the first responders in the city.
That's cool.
But like it's clickbait too, because he says that in the title, right? Like I went and bought 8,000 hamburgers and people are like, well, what's that all about?
Yeah.
But he does really cool things like that. Like one I watched, he planted like 1 million trees or something like that. And just like he actually does really good things, And so then, we've watched some of them and they're pretty clean for the most part, which I was a little bit disappointed in his interview. He was a little bit vulgar.
Potty mouth. His mom, don't show this to my mom.
But just that, as we talk about business, I thought that his story was really cool because he just talked about how he was just fired up about it. He loved YouTube, because Joe's like, well, who taught you how to do YouTube and how'd you figure that all out? And he's like, I was just addicted to it. And I taught myself how to do it and how to get, like, did you hear the part where he was even saying they were like timing? So him and some of his buddies got together and they were trying to figure out the best way to make successful YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And so they were timing like the time between screen, like video, like screen changes.
Interesting.
Or like different pictures or whatever, like anyway, just
that's cool.
Just like jumping in and committed to it and being obsessed with it.
At 11.
Yeah.
He was 11. Now he's 23. He says he's been doing it for, I think
a decade.
Years.
Yeah, something like that.
He used to make $1 a day. And then he didn't know what to do or how to do it. So what I liked was his mastermind. He's like, that was cool. I got together with a couple other people, which sounds like they don't talk anymore, because he was kind of like,
oh, I didn't hear that part.
Maybe they do. Maybe I got that wrong. But they would get together and they would just chat about all of that. But he even called it a mastermind, which I thought was really cool, because Napoleon Hill also calls it a mastermind. And I doubt that this kid at 11 was like, I need a mastermind group. Yeah. But he did it and obviously became massively successful from it.
Well, and I think he even said that all of them now have successful channels, right?
Oh yeah, because he said within a few months got to 1 million followers.
Yeah, within a few months of each other.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then, like just, I think it shows it's what we talk about. It's being excited about something, being passionate about something. Yeah, figuring out a way to use that to add value to others.
Yeah.
And then in return, as you get better and better at that, then you get value out of it too by being compensated for it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really cool story.
Yeah, it is. And it just illustrates so many different points that we do. We talk about. And, one of them is faith, his college story. So, if anyone hasn't listened to that, it's the Mr. Beast episode. I think the last one that was on Joe Rogan. And he says he goes to college. He went to college and he didn't actually go. He was just getting zeros, F's in all of his classes, but his mom thought he was going, and that gave him a timeline, a deadline. He's like, I knew what I was doing wasn't sustainable, so I had to hurry and make it on YouTube. And then he made like $20,000 in a month or something. He's like, hey mom, by the way, I don't go to college anymore and I made $20,000. I'm going to move out. So,
yeah. But I think it shows that passion and that drive,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of successful people have a very similar story.
Yeah.
Even though it seems crazy, like there's so many people that were like, even look at Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, I think. And I think both of them dropped out of college because they were just obsessed with what they were doing.
Well, and if you think, and there's we've said it before, there's nothing wrong with having a job if that's what you're choosing. But you never hear, you know, you just said Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. If they were working a 9 to 5, you never would have heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not why we do this. We don't try to be successful to get our name out and have notoriety. But at the same time, working that 9 to 5 is very difficult to become financially wealthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's and just I think the fun part more than anything of starting something, being uh committed to something and moving forward with that and watching that grow is the excitement and passion around it.
Yeah.
Like with that interview, I went and actually, so I just watched like a 15-minute clip that was kind of his story of how he kind of got going. But before I saw that and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I went and clicked on the actual episode on Spotify.
Yeah.
And listened to like the first 10 minutes, which after a little bit, I was like, I'm not going to waste my time listening to this garbage, whatever. But he was very nervous, which was interesting. And then on YouTube, the 15-minute clip popped up. So I think it was probably like an hour, it was some time later into it.
Yeah.
So at the first part, he was really nervous. Well, I clicked on it again and he was just like animated and excited and like,
that's cool.
Was just, you could tell he was very passionate about what he does and his story behind it. And just, even though he even admits like that he was an awkward kid and all he wanted to do was talk about YouTube to people and all this stuff. And YouTube wasn't cool at the time.
Yeah.
But he's just like, you can tell he just loves what he's doing and is excited about it.
It's really cool. Well, that episode then is kind of analogous to success, or at least jumping away from your 9 to 5 and getting into something that you're passionate about. At first, you're nervous.
Yeah.
It's scary. You might be a little bit shy and and then a few months later, like, hey, dang, this was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it just takes some time, just I guess like that episode.
Well, and I think there's value too, like you talked about where he's like, okay, I told my mom I was going to college. Obviously, within a semester, she would know that he's not going or whatever. So he kind of was up against, a hard spot to like, I have to make this work in the next 3 months. I think there's a lot of value to that. I've kind of done both ways. I've had a side hustle and eased into it. I've also had times where I knew something was wrong and I just stepped completely away from it, even though it's scary, but it does light a fire under you because you're like, I have to make this work.
Yep.
And so there's kind of two ways to look at it there. And fear and failure are a great motivator sometime as well.
Yeah, they definitely are. Well, you got Napoleon Hill, one of the originals, one of the greats in the self-development world. And he talked about not having a backup plan. There's something to do with stepping into it, the unknown, faith, just doing it, just go for it. It's like, well, that's scary. What if? Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst that can happen? This kid started at 11, so obviously a little different.
Yeah.
But there is difference. But you got Kentucky Fried Chicken that started when Colonel Sanders was like 60 or older.
Right. Yeah.
It's never too late to do what you're passionate about.
For sure. And never too early too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in high school or college and listening to this, like start now.
Yep.
Like I look at what, it took me, I've been involved in different businesses and that has some compounding effects in itself. You learn things in one business that you can take and learn in a different business. And you kind of, it does compound beneficially, but starting a business that you're passionate about when you're 18 years old and working on that for 10 years, by the time you're 28, you are very well established and know what you're doing in that business.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of value in starting something young and jumping into it. And you don't have the commitments, you don't have the responsibilities when you're young. Like, if you're in high school or college, just go for it. If it's something that you think is exciting.
Yeah. Make it happen right now.
So,
that makes a lot of sense. And it is funny. Just as so people know, and if you're older, then you understand it. There's a security level that you start to get used to in a job. The first couple of years, it might be like, oh, well, I can go find something else. I can do something. I can do anything. And then as the years go by, it kind of just ticks away. And at some point, it's like, oh, it's too late. I can't go do anything else. Like, well, how old are you? I'm 50. Well, that's okay. 50.
Mm-hmm.
Still got another 40 years to live.
Mm-hmm.
You're only halfway through your life.
Yeah.
And really, that's how we should be looking at it. It is scary to step out, but scary doesn't mean it's wrong.
Well, and think about the amount of change you can make in 5 years.
Yeah.
So say you're 50 and you say, I want to change. And, I think with that security thing, a lot of times it's like, well, the devil I know is better than the devil I don't know,
Yeah.
And so even though maybe it's not checking all of those boxes, the situation that we're in right now, it's easy to say, well, at least I know that
Yeah.
it sucks and it potentially could suck a lot worse, or,
Yeah.
maybe not even suck. It just isn't as good as you want it to be.
Yeah.
But, say you're 50 and you start doing, you want to make some changes. This could be anything in life. This can be physically, this can be mentally, this can be in a job, whatever.
Yeah.
In 5 years, you can be in a completely different realm of life.
Yeah.
I mean, really, 5 years is quite quite a lot of time to make some serious progress.
In the business world, it's kind of an eternity. Your business can be made in 5 years. You can definitely be broken in 5 years too.
Yeah.
You start just focusing on the basics, and it's crazy. If I think back, we've been in business for about 14 years, but if you put it in 5-year chunks, those are massive differences.
Mm-hmm.
We started one out just very small, very minimal, part-time. 5 years later, very different spot. 5 years after that, oh, like world of difference. Full-time, couple different businesses in the same build. Like just
Yeah.
5 years, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Totally big difference.
And it's interesting too, because looking at a big established business like what you guys have here, you look at that and you're like, man, how do you ever get to that level, from the outside looking in? But what we don't see is that whole backstory.
Yeah.
For you, you probably don't see the big complete business just in itself. You see all of the 14, you see that whole process that you just talked about, like, and every business starts like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't start in the big buildings that we see now.
Yeah. You look at Walmart and you're like, how did they ever get there? Well, Sam Walton started it in a little tiny store. We've talked about it in the past. He started a little department store or whatever it was, a little hardware store. And then it grew, and then it scaled. And that's kind of the key, is very quickly. And I don't know where we want to shift today as far as conversation goes, but there's a book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And in that, he talks about being the technician, the manager, and the business owner. And as early on as possible in a business, you want to start to transition to manager and business owner. It's cool to do all three in the beginning, just to kind of know. Like, that's what we've done in all of ours. Everything, we've always been the technician, then the manager, then the business owner. And it's taken some time to get to business owner, to where we're just making kind of some decisions here and there. But as quickly as possible, that's what we want to do. We want to shift. And so, if someone's starting a little handyman business on the side, that's great. But at some point, it wears on your body, or it wears on your mind. And you want to have somebody trained to where they can be the technician, and then you manage them. And then at some point, you want to be able to hire a manager, because you've got 15 different people working for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to go help the economy of Cancun.
Yeah.
And then your manager is going to be helping the economy of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And then those guys are going to be helping the economy of Cincinnati.
Each of those towns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's leverage too.
Yeah. Great.
You're able to leverage people's time and skills, which maybe some people are like, oh yeah, greedy business owners just leveraging everything they can. But no, really, you're giving employees an opportunity to step into a good workplace and provide business, provide jobs for them to go and do work at the job site and everything else. So it is it's a progression that is successful for everybody, I guess.
And it's a proven progression. Something that's important to remember in all of that, if you say leverage, all of those people are choosing to work, and what they're probably hoping for, well, let's say from a business owner standpoint, there are going to be some of them that want to stay in the technician spot forever. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be some that want to move to a management position. Great. And then some that are going to want to move from a management position to an owner position, which means they're going to go out and start their own company. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Jocko.
That's right, Jocko.
Yeah. So at that point, then you could get into the competition part, which we don't get into. We are into collaboration. Collaborate with them, and all of a sudden you start to be able to go from Cincinnati to, I don't know any other towns in Ohio. So
yeah,
you get to just move out. Scranton. Yeah.
Isn't that in Ohio?
Or is that Pennsylvania?
I don't know. I'm looking it up.
We should look
keep
that
going.
up. No, you're good. Oh, that guy.
Maybe it is Pennsylvania. I don't watch that enough to know. Anyway.
Well, I was gonna just start to make fun of him, but I better not.
Yeah, it is Pennsylvania. My bad.
No, Scranton.
I don't know my geology very good.
In the office is Scranton in Ohio?
I think.
I have no idea.
I don't know. Either.
Maybe they don't even say the state.
I don't watch it enough.
Oh, it's so great. I don't watch it enough either. But I should. Competition, collaboration, and just collaborate. I mean, if we've learned anything from the Federal Reserve, it's that we should all come together and just collaborate, because really that is what it's about.
Right.
If another rock climbing gym is going to open in this town, cool. We're probably going to specialize in different things. Can you imagine if there's only one construction company around?
Yeah.
Well, sounds like the prices would be a little outrageous, and you'd have no quality control.
And gas stations and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's cool.
It is. All of business is cool.
Well, it's interesting too. This is something that I kind of mentioned before we got on the podcast, and that is just how small little things, like you talked about it in your business. You went from a part-time thing, and then it got a little bit bigger and then a little bit bigger. And then you take year 1 and year 10, and they're not even on the same planet. They're completely different in a decade. And so one thing that I've been, just has been standing out to me over the last week or two is it's called, I think it's actually like a philosophy or something, but it's called the aggregation of marginal gains. And so it's, just the philosophy that these little teeny tiny gains on a daily basis over time create huge changes in institutions or people or whatever. And it actually happens pretty fast. Yeah. Like the main kind of story that I'm thinking of was it was like the British cycling team back in I don't know when, during a certain period of time, and they were terrible. Like they were so bad that a lot of bike companies wouldn't even let them buy their bikes to ride because they were that bad. Like they hadn't won a race in years and years and years and all that kind of stuff. Well, they got a new coach, and that was his model and ideas, that he was going to find little tiny things that they could do. And within a few years, they were like the number 1 team in the world.
So cool.
Just finding these small little things.
Even down to their pillows.
Yeah.
I mean, they found the right pillows for these cyclers. I'm like, what does that have to do with it? It has everything to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, like painting the inside of a van a certain color, and like just, what kind of clothes they were wearing, and just everything, looked at every little thing. I mean, you think about it in fitness.
Yeah.
I mean, think when I like to run. And so I try to run, at least a few days a week. And I think back to when I started running, I think it popped up on Facebook. I think it was like 7 years ago. And I'd never really been into running or anything, but I decided that I wanted to run. And I lived out on a farm, and there was a tree back behind that house that was, I think it was like a half a mile there and a half a mile back. So it was a mile total, to get out to this tree and back. I could not run that.
Yeah.
To begin with, so I would run and walk and run and walk and run and walk. Now it's running a mile is no big deal, and so, but looking back, it's like I'm in a completely different place as far as being able to run than I was just a few years ago.
Yeah.
7 years ago was not that, that's not that much time.
Yeah. I mean,
And so
we're talking the 5 years, two more than 5, and 5 years ago, you're in a way different spot.
Yeah.
Also, too, like, what's the furthest you've ever run?
I've run a 50K. So
Holy
that's
crap.
like 32 miles or something like
Okay,
that. I don't know exactly what it is.
That's nuts. How would an extra 3 miles have been on that?
How would it have been?
Yeah. I mean, if you're already running a 50K.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been a big deal.
Yeah.
It's 10%, basically.
But then you just barely said that at the beginning.
I know.
It was a mile.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what wouldn't have been a big deal 7 years later to just do an extra 3 miles, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
A third of that was difficult.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, in the beginning, it seems like it's such a huge thing, like, okay, I can't run a mile. Well, running 5 miles is so like such a big thing, Well, you get to 5 miles and you look back and you're like, it just, we grow into those things, like when I was trying to run 1 mile, if somebody would have said, you're going to run a marathon someday, like it wasn't even a goal that I was striving to do. I just, but just making small, consistent changes every once in a while. And that wasn't even every day. That's like a few times a week.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, same thing in business, same thing in mindset, same thing in any of it. We can be a completely different person really in a year.
Yeah.
Probably in 6 months.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, it's actually, I don't want to say impossible because we don't believe that things are completely impossible. But it's implausible to think that every day we could become 1% better. Because in 100 days, without compounding, you're 100% better.
Mm-hmm.
But even taking that principle and scaling it back, just get a little bit better every day. Even if it's 0.00001 every day, you're getting better every single day. And it doesn't have to be everything either. You were doing, you're talking running. Well, it could be mindset. It could be, any of that. As long as we're getting a little bit better in one part of our life a day, things aren't going to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
Circumstances might change, but then you're now a different person. It's cool. I like all of it's cool. And it's vast. That's the thing, is it's tough to even narrow in on one thing because it's vast. It's everything in our life. How you do anything is how you do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So by you running and finding out, hey, I can run a mile. Well, then it might be, hey, well, that means I can do the carnivore diet. Well, now I do both. I can quit my job.
Mm-hmm.
I can go out and make things happen.
Or if that's too big of a jump, aim lower.
Yeah.
Because quitting a job might be a 50% change or something. Well, aim lower, aim. I was reading Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life, and he talks about chapter 4 is my favorite chapter, or rule 4. It's my favorite rule in there. And it says, the rule is compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who somebody else is today.
Oh, yeah.
And he talks about that, how a lot of times we aim too high. And so we're like, well, we're not going to do that. It's high. And we think that should be the next step. And so a lot of times we don't do it because it's too much of a step. So he says, aim lower. So, he says, well, if you're not, this is just an example. This isn't an example that he's going to give, but okay, if you don't want to work out for 30 minutes, work out for 15.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not going to work out if that's still too much, work out for 10.
Yeah.
If that's still too much, work out for 5. Okay.
Yeah,
that's it today. Yeah. Work out for 5.
And you worked out.
And then you go, that wasn't so bad. Well, then the next day it's like, okay, well, maybe I can work out for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't take very many days of doing that to then work out for an hour a day.
Yeah.
It's not, but it was interesting in that book that it's like aim lower, so.
I think that's great. The whole shoot for the stars and hit the moon thing, it's true in the fact that you'll still reach some level of success, but I want to know that what I'm trying to achieve is actually achievable.
Mm-hmm.
That's more motivating to me than thinking, hey, I'm going to try really hard and just kind of see where I go. Well, if I want to run a mile and I have to start that with 100 yards, that's cool. I know I can do 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can do 200. And then those incremental, I think it's good on our mind. Now, it's also good to have lofty goals, but I think it's almost switched. You make small goals that you know you can hit, and you make lofty goals and you kind of internalize them and then let them go. Like, hey, that could possibly happen someday. That's a pretty big goal, but I sure know that I can go out and run 100 meters.
Yeah.
Or I know that I can hop on and research what business I want to start.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't think about that, and I never did think about just getting on and researching what business you want to start is part of being a business owner.
Yep.
You're a business owner
sure.
already. And if you want to think the whole faith principle deal, you are already what you want to become. And if we want to reach any level of success in whatever that is, you have to be that person that can be successful. You can't be a millionaire without $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Couldn't think of another example there really quick.
Well, and he talks about that in there too, that, you start off aiming low, but then as you start to gain some successes and confidence, it actually elevates your vision and your goals for your life to those lofty heights, over time as you, like right now, like I've thought about running, like I see people on Facebook or whatever that I follow that run 100-mile race.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's incredible. And like maybe when I was running a 1 mile, it was like, man, those people are nuts.
Yeah.
Now it's like, so it wasn't even anything that I would perceive myself as doing in the future at all, ever.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I wonder what kind of preparation would go into that.
Yeah.
Or I wonder what it would be like to do that. Like it takes something that's completely out there and off the table and brings it in, as you gain success and you grow into that and you grow in the things that you want to pursue, then you start looking at those things that looked impossible before and you start going, well, maybe I'd want to do that, and looking at something and saying, maybe I'd want to do that has a lot of power, because you do that too many times and you find yourself doing that thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and words are really powerful. You say, I wonder if I could. Well, wonder is like daydreaming about, like deep daydreaming. Can I do this?
Mm-hmm.
Wondering. I think we mix that word up sometimes. Like, I wonder what it'd be to be a millionaire. And that's more like, it'd be really cool to be a millionaire, but I'm not going to try. We just
kind of fly by.
But yeah,
like it's just kind of gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know when you say, I wonder about running 100 miles, you're researching it, you're thinking it, you're like, man, I've run 50. Could I, you're going to, if that ends up being a goal, you'll just make it happen. And that's what it's all about. It's those little incremental gains, just like you're saying.
And it's a movement from those people are nuts, which, like you said, is completely dismissive.
Yeah.
To like, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
I mean, the power in just that, gaining some confidence to look at something, to look at $1 million business and go, yeah, I made $20,000 this last year in my business.
Yeah.
I kind of know what it took to do that. Okay.
Yep.
What do I need to put in place to get to that $1 million thing?
Yep.
Whereas before, when you weren't making anything in a business, it's like, well, that's impossible.
Yeah.
Those small steps are just powerful things, really.
Yeah.
And
like we were saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. So you start working in one area of your life and you start to become who that successful person can be. Have you heard the statistics on lottery winners?
Yeah. I mean, kind of generally.
Like the vast majority of them within a few years are right back to where they started. they've lost it all
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, well, I won a $20 million lottery. So I went out and I bought a Lamborghini and I bought a 50 million or a $5 million home and I did this and that. They never knew how to manage money.
Yeah.
So when you get $20 million, you don't know what to do with it except for spend it. But if they would have accumulated that 20 million on their own over a long period of time, they've become who can hold on to that.
Yeah.
And that's the same with everything. Like we might even get into, which is this is a little off from starting a business, but like let's say you find a girlfriend or a boyfriend and they're amazing. And you kind of self-sabotage to lose that because we haven't become that person in that relationship,
Mm-hmm.
or we haven't become that person to hold on to that business. So self-development's really big in all of this as well. Like the marginal gains of self-development are huge.
Yeah.
If someone cuts you off in traffic, how do you react?
Probably one of the biggest parts.
Probably,
You know. Yeah, it is crazy. One of the self-development things I like to listen to is Jim Rohn. Have you ever listened to him?
I don't think I've
pretty good.
specifically listened to him, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, one of his things that he says is if you get $1 million, you better become a millionaire very fast so you get to keep the money.
Yeah.
You know,
exact
like
same thing.
Back to that mentality thing, you know. So yeah, and I think the exciting thing is that is you can make you can in 6 months from now, if you want to change, you can look back and be like, I can't even, I think we both are that way.
Yeah.
You know, I look back 6 months ago and I'm like, I had no idea how that was going to happen and that was going to fall into place. And man, that was incredible. What's in it for the next 6 months?
Yeah.
This is kind of neat.
Yeah. And what a cool mentality to have. Like instead of, oh, the next 6 months is going to happen to me.
Yeah.
It's like, man, the next 6 months might happen to me.
Yes.
You know, it's same words, different tone.
Yeah.
Like Jack Canfield, he talks about his mentor was a guy that I can't think of his name right now, and he worked for Napoleon Hill.
Okay.
W. Clement Stone. So Napoleon Hill, Success Magazine. W. Clement Stone was the editor of Success Magazine. And Jack Canfield describes him as an inverse paranoid. So instead of being like, oh, well, oh crap, what if these bad things happen to me? He was like, oh wow, what if these great things happen to me? And that was just that was him. Mm-hmm. That was his persona. Instead of the negative, it was all the positive. And how would life change if we're like, oh, that light stayed green for me? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, oh, those doors just opened automatically. Like it sensed me walking in here.
Mm-hmm.
Man, life would be pretty good.
Or something happens with a customer or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a perfect situation for me to prove to that customer that I'm always going to treat them well or something. You know what I mean? Like always looking for the good in every situation, even sometimes the bad ones.
Yeah. So. Which is back to your marginal gains. When those good things happen and you acknowledge them, maybe it's not that more good things are going to happen, but you're going to notice more of those good things. And we know that when you focus on something, it expands. So now you're focusing on that great, on that good. It's just going to get more. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's a universal law. I don't know what it is. I just know that it's true because we've lived it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too that people can, like, I think a lot of times we take for granted, we all think that we live in the same world. You know, we're all in the same physical world.
Yeah.
But everybody lives in completely different realms of being, you know.
Yeah.
Somebody that's fit is living in a different life, really, completely different life than somebody who's not and can't go climb a mountain or do what the things they want to do.
Yeah.
They are living in two completely separate realms of being.
Yeah, like mental worlds.
Yeah, or even physical worlds.
Because that's very true.
The person that's but we don't look at it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So somebody that's making Well, and it's not even necessarily that. It's the mindset too can change too. But everybody's living in a completely different world from each other, even though we think that we're not.
That makes sense when you say it like that. You look at the Grand Teton, which is a big, huge mountain by us.
Mm-hmm.
To an unfit person, might be like, "That's a very beautiful mountain," and to the fit person, they go, "I'm gonna go conquer that."
Yeah, I'm gonna go to
Yeah.
the top of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that makes a lot
and
of sense.
that's
I've never thought about it like that.
So I mean, it's just interesting that it's cool because we have the power individually, I think, to change that. If we're in a life that we don't like,
Yeah,
we can change that
yeah,
ourselves personally.
yeah. We definitely can.
And it all comes from these little tiny things.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So what do you focus on first? Like, let's say someone is listening to this and they go, "Oh, man, I'd really like to quit my job." These guys are talking about marginal gains. Well, I don't even have anything to gain right now.
Yeah.
They do, but they're just thinking that. Like, what's a good place for them to start?
I think so I actually had this conversation with somebody the other day. I hadn't thought about this, but I think probably the place to start is figure out why you want to quit doing that part and start doing something else. You know, if you're doing it, just figure out what is the problem. Is the problem your job? For sure. Like there's things going on there that you just don't like and whatever, then I think it's important to separate that from I want to pursue something. Like maybe you don't like your job because you want to pursue this idea that you have or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, just kind of looking inwardly, and maybe this is I don't know if this is the right answer or not.
I'm not getting any of it. No,
But I think,
this is good.
But I think just figuring out for yourself, like what is something passionate or cool that you want to do.
Yeah.
And figure out maybe that is in your job. If your job could change this way and this way and this way, or you could get promoted to a different position or whatever. Maybe that changes within kind of the area that you're at. Maybe there is things outside of that you're like, well, I'm a whatever right now, I'm a police officer right now, but I've always wanted to have my own business doing whatever, like tactical training or something like that. Well, figuring that out is a big step in the right direction. Like all I can think about is this tactical training business. I know it would be good.
Yeah.
Well, like just figure out yourself, really sit down and have those conversations of what do I want to do? Sometimes even writing down a pros and cons list of the different things that you want to do.
Yeah. I like that.
And just really having intent on making those big decisions, because if it's just coming from emotion and it's like, I don't like my boss and I want to quit.
Yeah.
That's not a great place
for sure
to be making those big decisions from.
Yeah.
I think too that it's a lot more powerful to be running towards something than to be running from something. If you're just quitting your job because you hate your job and you want to quit and you don't like your boss, there's not a lot of emotional energy around that.
Yeah.
If you're running towards something because you think you're passionate about it and excited about it, you have a lot more
value to give.
Sorry,
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. And I was going to say too, probability of success, a lot more probability of success. So I'd say that little thing is, and that's a small thing, just write down like what your goals and dreams are, what your vision is, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and kind of the pros and cons of your current situation.
Yeah.
And figure out really what it is you want to pursue or be excited about. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
know. What do you think?
Well, going a little bit with what you said about because you hate your boss and running from that, I think the best way to get from where you are to where you want to ultimately be is just bettering yourself. So, we go, well, I hate my boss. Well, why do you hate your boss? Well, he's a jerk. Well, why is he a jerk? Like let's dig in, like dig a little bit. Start asking yourself, why am I where I am? And not meaning that if you don't get along with your boss, that's why you're in that position. But it actually might be.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in that position and you're having a difficult time, well, you're either going to have to become better at something to get out of that position, or you've got to become better at something, maybe meaning people skills or communication, something like that, to be okay in the situation that you're in. So really it's self-development. It's just trying to get as good as we can where we are right now, and then we can move to other places. It's back to the whole Jim Rohn thing. If you get $1 million, you better become a millionaire really fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Like if you're going to jump out into the unknown, you also have to be willing to hurry and learn. Or if that's scary to make that jump, right now, start reading business books, listen to business podcasts, start the side hustle slowly, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can take a leap. If we know there's a trampoline down there, it's not a problem, but we might have to climb down a little bit before we let go.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I think it's important too. I really look at the personal development that I do. I look at like they say, surround yourself with the 5.
Yeah.
You're going to be who you surround yourself with, the 5 people, whatever. I look at a lot of those people as my mentors when I'm reading their books or listening to their podcasts or whatever. And then over time, those ideas and stuff kind of make their way into your brain.
Yeah.
And become kind of ingrained there. And so I think that's super important.
The godfather of podcasting. Joe Rogan had a guy named Dakota something on the other day.
Dakota Meyer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Dakota said something along the lines of that we kind of just are who we are. And what I like about Joe is he's willing to disagree, because he goes, no, we're actually the sum of what we listen to, what we read, what we watch. He was kind of going in the direction of that we are the 5 people that we hang out with the most. And I think Dakota was kind of saying like, we are who we are. We can change a little bit, but I think is what I got out of it. And then Joe's like, no, there's so much more that goes into who you are. So if we're just listening to, and I've fallen into this, you just listen to the news all day, man, life sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm listening to negative clickbait crap all day long. But lately I've been listening to, I listened for years, it was just podcasts and audiobooks. I started to get a little bit burned out and like just over and over. It's kind of like the same thing drilled into my head. And I was like, man, I got to switch this up. Like, what can I do? So I started listening to Johnny Cash radio on Spotify.
Oh, cool.
I honestly feel like my life has changed.
That's
and
cool.
It sounds weird, but you can't listen to that old country music without just having a little smile on your face.
Yeah.
Well, then that little smile on my face translates to someone cuts me off in traffic, and it's like, that's okay. Mm-hmm. Have a good day. I'm listening to Johnny Cash saying that he built a car over a 30-year period.
Yeah.
Or there's some weird songs on there.
I'm gonna have to try that.
Oh, out. It's so good. Yeah. There's just songs. We put celebrities on such a pedestal.
Uh-huh.
And then you listen to these celebrities and you're like, we knew you were doing drugs all along. Like, no.
I think everybody knew he was doing drugs.
Yeah. Johnny Cash and then Willie Nelson's like talking about LSD and smoking pot. And you're like, wait a second. One of these celebrities dies of a drug overdose and we're all like, what? Like they've been saying that they're doing hardcore drugs for years. Your neighbor dies of an overdose and you're like, oh, he was troubled.
Yeah.
These celebrities, it's like, what?
Yeah.
He wasn't doing drugs. No.
Wasn't it like Waylon Jennings was running around with them and like,
dude, I think it was
like even like Hank Williams, like he died of, I think, drug overdose. Yeah,
it was crazy. But as far as just going back to being in that
it was
state
simple,
of mind.
though. That's the thing. It
so
was
simple.
Very simple messages and things like that.
Yeah, even the songs are short. You listen, it's like a minute and 10-second song. You're like, what? It's over? It's just a different time.
Yeah.
But
if it changes your frame of mind,
yes,
that's the key.
Yep. Last night I was driving home and I was listening to a great book. It's about the Comanche Indians, Summer of the Empire Moon. Such a good book. Like, I've listened to it about 3 times now.
I'll check it out.
I was just kind of driving and I was like, man, I'm kind of sick of this book. You start listening to Johnny Cash radio, and it just you can't be unhappy.
Get some
Like,
Merle Haggard.
we don't smoke marijuana in somewhere. We don't go on trips on LSD. And you're like, wait, he's saying all the things that he does do.
Trickster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just good.
Well, I think that's the key, is finding things to elevate our mood, help us be optimistic,
Yeah.
surround ourselves with success and everything. Even like following pages in Instagram that pop up
Yeah.
positive memes or something, like I think there is absolutely an effect on what we surround ourselves with. I agree.
Yeah, I think you're right. So going kind of deep for a second, entanglement theory, quantum mechanics, quantum physics. So when you get deep into an atom, you get to a place, and I think they've even found more than what are called quarks at this point. But the only way to know where a quark is to think about where it's going to be, which is nuts.
So that's like a
subatomic particle.
Atomic particle.
Yeah. So they're looking at this and they go, we really want to see a quark, but I can't see a quark. Well, I want to see it right there. It appears. It's there. Well, now they've done these DNA studies and everything. There was this one of a military guy. I think it was World War II, and I don't know how they do all this, but they take his DNA and they can kind of map what it's doing at the time. Like if it's happy, if it's sad. I don't know how this all works. Well, then they take his DNA and they put it in another room and they show him some videos of World War II. The painful side, the scary side, the emotional side, also the happy side. When they start doing this, they see his DNA changing in the other room, like it's happy, sad, the same as him. Well, then they're like, well, let's see how far it can go. It goes pretty much as far as you can around the earth. And it was doing the same thing at the same exact time. So then we have this entanglement theory. Like you and I shake hands. Well, we've just traded DNA on our hands. Everyone's kind of connected in some way, but then even going to the 5 people that we hang out with the most. Well, why, if I'm hanging out with a bunch of massively successful people, start to become successful? Like it could actually be part of this entanglement theory. Like, it's pretty cool that it's just, actual frequencies and feelings and emotions and DNA start to actually get there. It's cool. It's cool. Deep. I think it's very theoretical, but to me, it makes a lot of sense. And so then it's like, okay, well, you want to be careful who you're hugging and swapping DNA with.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Make sure you're
mask up and vaccinate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, so while you were talking about that, I had this thought of, like I've always believed that what you focus on expands.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that we feel stuck when we're in a job, maybe because we're focusing on that for 8 or 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like we don't have any other focus to get other things expanding, can be. But I was thinking too, like, I wonder, so say we focus on, I want to make $1 million. Well, the $1 million is probably there, and we probably could achieve that if we focused on it. But a lot of times we don't have the confidence in ourselves.
Yeah.
To know that that's it. We second guess and we're like, focusing on $1 million's too much. I'm not going to focus on $1 million. I'm going to focus on 100,000, which is fine. Because then, if we really truly focus on and work towards the 100,000, then we gain a little bit of confidence. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, now I am going to focus on 500,000. I just made 100,000, but the $1 million was probably there too if we just had the confidence to focus on that, and so it's and people probably do, they probably make that leap maybe, whereas other people take a few steps to get there, and it's all good. But it's just interesting. I think that a lot of times we discount our own abilities and our own self-confidence instead of, or but maybe we don't identify that. We think, well, the $1
Yeah.
million isn't there. We're focusing on the $1 million instead of that. The $1 million isn't out there, instead of the, well, I need to change before I can focus on that and see it. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, I think you're exactly right. And it goes back to the marginal gains. You know, we feel like, oh, $1 million's just so much. Okay. So make 1,000,
Mm-hmm.
then make 5. And then that marginal, it's huge. And it's in fitness and it's in emotional well-being. And we've got, you know, all of the pillars up here of cash calf. So mindset, value creation, freedom, self-development, finance, kind of the legal side, service and spirituality. You have to start at one place, and you can't just jump to the top of a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at, I wish people could see everything I'm pointing at right now, but we have this little thing that says what people think success looks like, and it's just this perfect line to a flag. But what success really is you gain a little bit of altitude, and then you got to dip into that river, and then you can gain a little bit more, and you've got to climb down into that canyon. You know, it's an undulating thing upward. It's how does Gregory Mannarino say it? It's up and down with an upward tilt or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think that is what he says. And that's, yeah,
it's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He talks about that with the S&P 500. Like it just keeps going up. And so it's
but you can see that when you
Yes.
look at
Zoom it
a
out.
12-month period.
Yep.
And it's like that with our life too. As you look at a 12-month period, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not making any progress.
Yeah.
And then you zoom it out to 5 or 10 years, and you're like, holy crap, I'm a completely different person.
It's cool.
And even worth the 1-year perspective, probably
Yeah.
most of the time too. You just, maybe it's not recognizable.
Well, and I think the key there is what you just said with, we're a completely different person. I think that's really what all of this comes down to, is being able to focus on ourselves enough to become what we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah,
can't just get it. We have to become it.
Yeah. Yep.
Marginally.
I think so. Yeah. And I think, I think that's important. Like we were talking, work on yourself, kind of see what your motivations are. I would say some of the other steps too, or like you talked about before, was start researching other businesses. Like that's a small step in the right direction. Research what's the difference between an S corp and an LLC, or and we have tons of resources now where that education and those things can be gained so quickly,
so fast.
You could watch a YouTube video a day, say you want to learn about business structure or starting a business or something. Within a few hours of YouTube videos, you can be educated on how you need to start whatever kind of business you want.
And you're now possibly an expert.
Yeah.
If you ask 9 out of 10 people on the street the difference between an LLC and an S corp, I'm like, I don't know. Well, I've never heard those letters before.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know what that is.
You just became an expert on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. That kid that we were talking about in the beginning, Mr. Beast, he had to teach himself all of that probably on YouTube. He learned how to become a YouTube star on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Like we have that. And maybe that's the hard part too, is there's so much information available. It's hard to maybe decipher some of that and know what the proper steps are.
Very true. That's why I started listening to Johnny Cash Radio.
Yeah.
I honestly felt an information overload to the point where I was like, why am I learning this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of know the basic principles, and I'm not going to say like I know them good enough to stop studying them, but it really was kind of temporarily, I'm just going to listen to some happy stuff instead of try to do all this.
That's interesting, because I've kind of felt the same way. Like I have like investing guys that I would like for a year's time. I think I probably listened to and I took some classes and stuff on investing and stuff. So I just was like totally engulfed in it for like a year. And here a couple months ago, I could feel that. I was like, I don't want to, like I'll maintain, but I want to do something else. So
I'll send you,
I'll
send you that episode or that playlist, because it is so good. It's going to change your life.
So I've had a hard time struggling knowing what to study this year, because I usually get a few books to study or something. You know? And that's kind of my study for the year. And I've settled on Jordan Peterson. I've listened to a
he's so
ton of his
good.
stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, and it's not as much in your face business investing type stuff. It's more kind of personal development, just
Yeah.
maybe
I think it's
philosophy,
philosophy.
something like that.
Yeah.
But
And
anyway, but
kind of
it's
common
just
sense
different.
philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Jordan Peterson as well. And he is one that I truly have to listen, stop listening, process it, listen again.
Yeah.
Like his book 12 Rules for Life, or especially his YouTube deals about Christianity and all of that.
Yeah. Have you listened to the Bible series?
Yes. No. I started.
It's
It's so deep that I'm like, that is it like 3 hours? That first one's pretty long. Maybe it's just an hour.
There's like 20 of them. And
Yeah.
I think they're about an hour or 2 hours or
I've
3 hours.
probably listened to 3 of the videos,
Mm-hmm.
and it really was like, listen to 10 minutes, go listen to it again. Listen to 20 minutes, go back and listen to the last 10. He's just so deep. I can't.
I haven't listened. I've only listened to about 3 of them, but I didn't find them until just recently. So I've kind of done it with the same church study that's going on.
Oh,
because we're studying the Old Testament this year, and so it's been a little bit easier for me to process because I read it and then I know what's going on. But same thing, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what the heck you're talking about.
No, he's so deep, but he's really good.
Yeah, cool.
People should definitely listen to him, whether you're liberal or conservative or anywhere in between. Just being open-minded to some of that stuff.
I like it because he's pretty humble for his well respected and is educated and is well published, and like the credentials he has, he's pretty humble about it, so it's cool.
It is really cool.
Anyway, that's been my relief from the information overload this year, so it's been good.
Your relief from information overload is Jordan Peterson.
Well, probably because I can just tune out sometimes and listen, and it's the chatter, and I'm not
meditative because it's so deep.
Try to like, I don't even understand this crap anymore. I'm just gonna let it go and act like I do.
Yeah, his daughter's got some really good stuff too.
Oh,
Michaela.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I appreciate today.
We kind of ended us off in the weeds, but
no, I think we ended perfectly, because I think that's also important. We're talking marginal gains, but sometimes you might have to just step off the path for a minute, reset. That's okay.
And there's value there too.
Yeah, very true.
It's okay to take a break for a bit.
Yeah, I like it. Well, we're going to get back together tomorrow. We'll release this tonight.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sweet.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
See ya.